So I want to speak right after we do the Pledge of Allegiance stuff about. Welcome to the November 1st, 2017 regular meeting of the Calaveras Council of Governments. If you would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item this evening is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. Are there any items asked to be removed? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda
So
as
moved.
presented?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Catalano, seconded by Councilmember Tofinelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved 7-0.
And one abstention, sir.
Approved 6-0 with one abstention. Director Mills. Our regular agenda has public comment, 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and are not on the posted agenda. Do we have any public comment?
I don't have any public.
I'm watching the World Series.
Why did you get here?
Our fourth agenda item is the fiscal year 2017-18 overall work program quarterly report, presented by Ms. Raggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is informational. It's the quarterly expenditures by work element. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, do we have any questions on the quarterly overall work program? Seeing none and seeing no public comment, this was an informational item. Move on to agenda number 5. Presentation of the draft 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program for public review and comment. Ms. Collins.
Good evening, Council. This item, or the RTIP, was brought to you the last 2 council meetings for discussion. The draft RTIP incorporates the programming strategy that we discussed in October to fund construction of a priority segment of the western phase of the Wagon Trail project and to position the remaining segment of the western phase to be shovel ready. The draft RTIP is out for public comment. Comments are due on November 23rd, and we'll bring a final to the COG board meeting in December. We're also coordinating this draft RTIP with Caltrans as well. And if the council has any comments or questions?
Council.
I do have a couple questions. I noticed that we only have one project on this item. This is a 2-year cycle, so I think it's very important that the city and the county both, in the course of the next 2 years, look at some projects that we can at least place on here and have 2 years to get them shovel ready so we can place them on here. I'm not in favor of just having one item on this RTIP program. I think it shows that we've got all our marbles in one basket, even though it is a large project for us and we are phasing it. I think it's always best to at least have a couple projects on there in case something happens. We can at least have something to fall back to use those funds on instead of having to loan them out or let somebody else use them, as it spoke about in here of the tri-counties or now Mariposa as part of the overall mix, that we at least have these projects ready for us in the next 2 years timeline, so we have something to fall back on in case something does happen here, in my opinion.
Just to add to that thought, true, is that if we don't start thinking about what our next project will be, when this project is finished, we'll have a big hole or a gap in our whole planning phase. So if we start thinking about from the city's perspective or the county's perspective, and I agree, if we're always just thinking about this, then we'll never think about anything else. And so even just to have something there on the docket would give us at least some incentive to want to look at other things and be ready to go when this project is completed, which may be 2022 or 2023 or somewhere in there. It just, the idea is you don't move in anything unless you actually state you're going to have something there. So,
RTIP funds are for construction, so you have 2 years to identify a project and go through the environmental, so we can get there at least listed on the RTIP. The other thing I want to bring up is when I'm reading through this and noticing, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that the first phase of the project is the phase that is going from Angels Camp going back towards Stallion and Appaloosa.
No. The first phase is Pool Station to Appaloosa. It's the
Pool
middle.
Station to Appaloosa? Okay, all right. Pool Station to Appaloosa. We're covering the Stallion Way and the Appaloosa area where they have the
That's
line of
Appaloosa.
sight.
Yeah,
They
they'll
have
be
the temporary road going up.
Yeah, the
That- that-
Appaloosa intersection
Okay,
where
and
there's
Appaloosa.
that site issues is one of the priorities. So definitely from Appaloosa, but not Stallion Way because that's kind of
That's
one of the
further east.
straighter segments. That's not one of the priority segments.
Okay, all right, that's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
And then I think just on those comments, just asking the council to kind of keep this discussion in mind when I bring to you the call for projects in a few months.
Okay, any further council comment? I don't see any public comment. This was just a item brought to us for review. It closes on November 23rd. Item number 6, a minute order approving the award of professional services contract with McGuire Management Consultancy for the formation of a joint powers agency and transition plan for the transit services in Calaveras County. Ms. Collins.
This item is kind of implementation of a previous discussion item that I brought to the council in September regarding direction on the Calaveras Transit Program and to work with City and County on exploring development and feasibility of an alternative organizational structure for Calaveras Transit. The COG board at that time provided direction to work with City and County liaisons who had been appointed by their respective boards to identify next steps and directions from that group. The COG board also provided direction at that September COG meeting to program funds in the OWP work element amendment number 1 that we did bring in October for your approval, and then also to work on an RFP for facilitation services for this transition plan. So the COG staff met with the liaison group in September to get kind of consensus and direction from that group to move forward with the RFP for facilitation services. We released an RFP in September and received 1 consultant proposal. This is very unique kind of circumstances and very unique, requires expertise in this area, so it was kind of expected that we'd receive few proposals. So we met with the liaison group in October to review the proposal. Also, City and County and COG staff reviewed and scored the proposal in terms of the technical criteria in the RFP. So based on the review and feedback from the liaison group and staff, we're recommending contract award to McGuire Management Consultancy, who kind of demonstrated thorough understanding of the issues and expertise in this area. The liaison group provided mainly comments on the schedule and some contract exceptions that were requested from the consultant. So we worked out those exceptions with the consultant, with 1 remaining exception for workers' compensation insurance because they do not have any employees and have no intentions of employing anyone, although, so I worked with the COG legal counsel to kind of include a statement in the contract to address that issue, and that was acceptable by COG legal counsel and I think the liaison group as well. So if COG has any more questions or comments on this.
Council.
Yeah, I have several questions. When we got his proposal back, and I was part of the committee, he didn't have any insurance at all. I mean, he blatantly said that on his proposal. that he has no liability insurance, he has no workers' comp insurance, he has no even vehicle insurance, but he said he would get the insurance, and it's in the contract. The workers' comp one, he claimed exemption on because he doesn't have employees. He said anybody that will be working on this project other than himself would be contractors. And certainly if he's on his own, he is exempt from any workers' comp. If he owns the company and he's a principal of that company, he does have exemption for that. My concern is how do we know if he's going to hire, if he does hire anybody, is he going to be in compliance? And then on the other liability insurance part of it, myself as a subcontractor, many times, 99% of the time when I sign a contract, I have to issue a waiver and cover or hold harmless the general contractor and the owner. So if he's got separate contractors that he's subbing out to do this work, I think that those contractors need to provide us with a waiver of liability.
Or a certification.
And this would be opposed to Jim. I'm just going by what I do as a contractor when I sign a subcontract. I'm telling you 99.9% of the time, it's not that big of a deal to get a waiver. Insurance company just sign a waiver out. It doesn't cost you anything for it. But at least the owner is covered if somebody, one of his subs, does some damage or gets hurt or what have you, that the people that are going to file a claim could come back on us because he's not really an employee of the contractor. He's a subcontractor of it. So those are my concerns on what we have here.
Okay, well, I worked with Amber on this, and the first thing that came to, I was told that he didn't have insurance, and I agree with you that he was disqualified, we couldn't do business with him. So Amber talked to him, and he did make arrangements to get insurance, liability insurance, and he'll have $1 million in coverage. He'll name us as the additional insured, and we'll make sure that we get that from the insurance company. We'll make sure that the coverage is what we want. It's a bit of a compromise, but there's a big difference. I mean, one of the things I look at is the risk of the project here. I mean, this is putting up a steel building is a universe apart from forming the office work of forming a JPA. So I think the liability exposure is, obviously this is a business decision that the board needs to make, but from my point of view, the liability exposure is minimal. The big risk is probably somebody having an accident driving to a meeting or something like that, or paper cuts. But beyond that, it's just not a big exposure situation. He doesn't have employees and he doesn't want to buy workers' comp insurance. He could buy workers' comp insurance. I don't know how expensive that is. Without having employees. What I did is I put a provision in the contract for the labor code that says if you do have employees, then you're required by law to have a workers' comp insurance. So it puts him on notice that if he hires anybody, he's obligated, and we've told him he's obligated to cover them. Amber told me that there's not a lot of interest in doing this contract. The contract has, to my point of view, limited liability exposure. We will have $1 million in coverage, and we'll make sure that coverage covers us for any liability we face because of the conduct of his subcontractors.
There you go. That's what I wanted.
So, putting a lot together, I'm comfortable recommending to the board that you approve the agreement. You have the ultimate decision to make. But I wouldn't read too much into this. I respect your experience, but I think that the difference is what's the work involved here.
And I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to be on record of making that statement, though. Just because something could happen, like you said, one of his contractors driving here gets in a wreck or something, and it's, his fault, and he states he's going to COG because he's doing work for COG, and he doesn't have insurance or whatever, they're gonna come after us. And I just feel, through the years that I've been doing business, that it doesn't cost anything. I don't know if they have insurance as subcontractors, but it certainly doesn't cost you anything for them to name us additionally insured and give us a waiver. But, it's up to the rest of the council. I don't want to shut this thing down. It's the only one that we got. We certainly need to work, the help from this contractor. We wouldn't have sent out for an RFP, so.
I haven't talked to him directly. My feeling is the way my speculation, I guess, is the way that he's working, forcing him to have insurance certificates from his subcontractors would kill his ability to get subcontractors. But I don't know that.
Okay.
For a fact.
I have a question, Jim. My experience with consultants is it's more important that they have E&O or malpractice insurance. We're more concerned, he's pulling together some documents that may have legal implications, and if they're wrong, he probably needs some protection personally for errors and omissions. Most of the consulting people that I know carry that kind of insurance. Was there any mention of that in this arrangement?
There's no requirement for that in here. And you have to go back and see if that's something, he may not qualify to even buy it, and it's probably very expensive.
It's not my experience, but if he gives us a product that's unsatisfactory, our recourse would be against his performance. And I would, other than us suing him for his house, I would think we would like to have that E&O or malpractice thing in place too. So just,
Well, I would think he would like to have that, but, that's not a risk that's going to pass on to us. If he commits malpractice, he's apparently starting off in business, and there probably are some risks he's prepared to take. And that's one of them. It's a risk to him, though. That's not, I don't think we can force him to protect himself. But you can if you want to, but I wouldn't.
I just think the more likely outcome is that he delivers an inferior product that we're not happy with. And, we want to pursue that.
Contract. We really appreciate contract issue to talk about.
Okay.
Good point.
Further council comment?
I think additionally for future contracts, and I know Director Tovenelli is aware of this, is that failure to perform within a timeline does result in liquidated damages. We've got a whole gamut of things that can happen here. So if our expectation is that this will be completed by a certain time, there's no statement in here to say, here's the penalty for failing to perform within the time window that's allocated. Not so much to talk about and derail what's here, but just think about it for future contracts, that it should be something to consider when you're setting a timeline, but you also set what that expectation is and what the cost would be for failing to perform.
Okay. Well, council, we have a request certainly to consider adding a clause for subcontractors to also provide direct evidence of insurance. As a board, our council has said that that's not necessarily a significant concern on our legal side, and it may, as I hear you speak to this, jeopardize this contract's execution, and that was a speculation on your part, as to Mr. McGuire's ability to hire on subs and delay it by having to get insurance for each of his subs, versus the amount of liability we may be facing on what is really an office and meeting type contract.
Amber can speak to the urgency of this. I'm willing to go back and talk to him some more about it, see what he can do.
Okay.
If it were my business decision to make, I'd be comfortable with this. But it's not my business decision to make a choice.
You would feel comfortable with everything. His contractors, Ember, will his contractors be coming to the COG offices?
I believe in their budget here, they do have some budget for subcontractor travel. But
I didn't know if that was travel to his office or his place, and then he travels here with their work and just represents that his coming here from their
yeah,
work.
but we could negotiate that if that's the main concern is their travel. You know, really the prime contractor is the one that will be facilitating a lot of the meetings here, so I can make sure that in the contract it doesn't include any travel for the subcontractor. That could be a solution.
Well, I was thinking maybe the solution could be at least his contractors at least prove that they have car insurance. I don't think that's gonna kill him if we at least say, you know, give a certificate showing that they at least have car insurance. You think that's something that's,
I'm fine with that.
okay.
If there's no urgency, you only meet once a month, but we'll bring it back in December. Will that work?
We could do that, or we can have a stipulation if they can't prove insurance, then we don't include travel for the
Okay.
subcontractor in the contract.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about putting it off another month because I know
Yeah, we don't wanna put it off another month, so.
yeah, we're looking to move this forward quickly.
I agree with that.
Is that okay? I think Tim had.
I have a question. Jim, in my industry, we're taught, with beat into our heads, to write every contract like we're going to court. As long as you feel that this is adequate, I don't think we need to wordsmith it to death. But if you feel that this is appropriate and would protect us in court, then I think that's sufficient.
If we have a solid promise from his insurance company that we're covered under that policy for $1 million for any liability that arises out of this work, I'm comfortable with that. Then having it required that his subcontractors do the same thing is really kind of belt and suspenders. And I can see why you do it in construction business.
Yeah.
But I don't see why you do it here.
I get your point. They're not out swinging a hammer or running equipment, so.
But we do want to make sure that we have the coverage under his policy. And we will, yes.
Okay.
Is there any further council comment? Do we have any public comment? All right. Do we have a motion to approve the award for the contract as presented this evening?
I'll move.
Moved by Councilmember
Second.
Catalano, second by Councilmember Munides. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Opposed? Okay. Approved 6 with 1 abstention. Item number 7, we have the county report.
Time the game start?
5:20. Don't worry, they hit all the home runs in the later innings.
You don't need to watch it to the 9th or 10th, right?
Good evening. Jeff Krovitz, Public Works County. On the capital improvement program that we are working on, significant progress made on the Burns Ferry Road left-hand turn pocket. We have a negotiated construction agreement with PG&E for relocation of the pole lines along Burns Ferry Road. And that is currently in circulation to be brought forward to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Once we get approval, we expect construction to start early next year. Just to clarify one thing, we currently do not have enough money to do the left-hand turn pocket, but we do have enough money to relocate the poles to give us the right-of-way room to construct the left-hand turn pocket. So we will continue to look for funds for this road widening portion of this project. Any questions on that? On the Mountain Ranch Road intersection and pedestrian improvements project, we are moving ahead for archaeological resources excavation in order to complete the environmental document. All other aspects of the environmental document are done. Design is at about 80%. So Once we get this investigation report out of the way or completed, we anticipate we should be able to move forward pretty quickly.
Do you have a time frame on that?
No, I don't at this point. I haven't heard back from my consultant on it. Thank you, though. I will get back to you on that. That's the major changes on capital improvement projects under this. Although, Amber, you're going to report out later on Murphy's?
I can.
That planning grant, that's listed in the CIP too, isn't it?
Are you talking about the release of the RFP?
Mm-hmm. You're going to talk about that?
Sure.
Great. Then I'm not going to cover it. That's all I have for capital improvement. I could fill in any other questions that council may have.
I had a question last month about the bike path up in West Point. Is there a ETA on if that is going to go and happen, or are we going to reallocate the funds to somewhere else?
Oh, we're not going to reallocate the funds. We're going to go ahead and complete the design and do the construction.
Okay.
And that project is more than half completed around the school, and it's a matter of completing sidewalks down the street towards Main, in that one block between where the school is and Main Street there in West Point.
And did, the Dollar General that's going in there, does that have any, being it's kind of in close proximity, does that have anything to do with any construction with that or not?
Projects aren't related.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further council comment? Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm waiting for the next one.
Transit report, Jeff. Welcome back.
Oh, you're back.
I have a new hat on. Jeff Krovitz again, Public Works, Transit Report. The Phase 4 bus shelters, PS&E is completed, and I saw the plans going out to circulation with Caltrans today to obtain comments and hopefully encroachment permits that allow us to move ahead with advertised bid and award. We interviewed for a replacement transit manager. As this council knows that our acting transit manager retired late September. And we had a candidate that we liked, but we were requested by county administration to consider a contract transit manager. So I'm working on that aspect to see if that's feasible and be affordable. On Saturday, coming Saturday from 10 to 2, we have a Stuff the Bus event. That will be occurring at the Marval down in Valley Springs and also at the Save Mart in Angels Camp. Thank you. So if any of you are available from 10 to 2 and you want to jump in and help stuff the bus, we would really appreciate it. Any other questions?
Council. I have a concern. The bus routes were already done in April to new color-coded routes, and we've not had any report back on any transit dynamics as to ridership, effectiveness. The only thing that's happened so far is the Saturday run, or the Stockton run has been discontinued. Can we get a report back to see how we're doing and or ETA on the end of the 15th, I guess, the end of 16, 17th through June report? Because we have no idea right now as to how transit itself is doing.
Okay. That's a good request. We'll do what we can. Absent a transit manager. So I will attempt to come back to you either with a report at the next meeting or a schedule for that report. Thank you. Any further questions?
I think we're good. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
City report. Mr. Hanham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Hannon, Planning Director for the City of Angels. Just going over the CIP projects, we are continuing to move on all those projects. In fact, I'm meeting with Melissa this Friday to actually work on the database, so I've scheduled some time to get some of these zeros off the dime. But for an update, I'm working with COG staff to get an RFP out for Murphy's Grade Road. Hopefully you'll be working with them and get some updates for you on that. Moving that project forward. We're still in the process of splitting our big project up, our sidewalks and our Angels Creek Trail. Working with the consultant right now. He should have something to me this week so that I can bring to my council to let him to go through that process of basically de-obligating and reprogramming to make sure both of our projects are paid for. And that's due to the fact that the city received $1.94 million in ATP funds. And so we're expediting the sidewalk portion of the project so that we can use ATP money and construct the sidewalk. So that's why we're splitting them up. The trail project is going to take a little more environmental work, a little more coordination. So it'd be a little bit behind. But they'll be the same consultants, and we'll be working on them continuously. It's just the sidewalk project would probably take a little bit more of a precedent. Regarding the city's 449 project study report, we had a PDT meeting last meeting. We received the purpose and need, which we think is the first step in getting this project going. We are working on, at our next meeting, which I think is in December, we're supposed to have some drafts, some language to take a look at as part of the project. So that has a pretty fast pace. It's supposed to the schedule is March, probably be more like April or May, I think, by the time it's said and done. But still, we started in September or August, September. So yeah, that's for Caltrans. That's pretty quick. 6-month turnaround. And then we'll be looking at what project approval and environmental determination will be. In terms of our striping project, the city is still working on that one. That's in our engineering department. I'm just not quite sure where we're at with that project. And I'll have more up to date for you on at your next meeting. In terms of other programs, I don't know if you've seen our big hole in the ground on Main Street. We got a nice big hole on Main Street, our Dollar General's building. So they're moving forward. We're also our planning commission approved our Mark Twain Medical Center, so you'll see some more construction on Stanislaus with the traffic signal on Stanislaus and 49. So we'll be working with Caltrans on those projects. Other than that, that's all I have, unless you have questions on any of our projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council.
Dave, I got a question. Has Best Western said anything more about what their timeline was?
No, they just have hold on to the property. We're trying to get in touch with the property owner just to kind of see what they are thinking or what they are doing. I think they bought the property just to serve as a buffer to Dollar General. However, we don't know at this point, so we're trying to get a hold of the property owners to kind of get an idea if they are looking at expanding rooms. They have enough room to do it. So yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Colonel Chan's report, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things for this month. Update on the grants. We have the grant applications for review at the district. We'll be providing our reviews next week to headquarters, and they will be doing their review. That will go to the December CTC meeting. Because this is SB1 money, the CTC has to approve essentially the program that's being funded, and the awards will go out we're anticipating late December, essentially after the CTC approval. There'll be another call in January, February. That call should also have this call had the sustainable communities and the climate change adaptation. I believe there'll also be a partnership. Sustainable partnerships will be back for the regular call in January. The deadline for that will be February. And so anything that doesn't get funded has another crack in February, and anything that wasn't quite ready, needs to be polished and prepared for then. We'll also have another round. ATP Cycle 4 is looking like applications will be due in April, so that's also just around the corner. As far as follow-up on some of the punch list stuff, the Big Trees intersection, I believe, should be all back to normal. Both the projects are done, which just proves if you ignore things long enough, they'll just go away.
And the lights back.
But the pavement's done and the ADA project's done, so the signal should be operating normally again. Vista del Lago 26 project, I just drove through it on the way here, and clearly the signal's not on and the crosswalks are not striped. I will check again. We were expecting, I think, was it October 25th, 3rd?
Last Monday.
So that didn't happen, and I'll follow up to find out why not. As far as the signals not operating, I don't believe we can energize the signals until we have all the striping done. Essentially, we need the road finished before we can turn on the signals. But I'll follow up with the project manager on that. We had a question about signage for Angels Downtown. We've talked before about implementing the wayfinding plan, which kind of we were looking to get it scoped, and that's kind of gone off. We haven't heard back on that. But then there was just, can we get a few signs about the parking, the real central stuff downtown? We can accept, a conceptual, send that to me. We'll treat it like an intergovernmental review, like we do the development projects. And that's really sort of a permit courtesy pre-review. Keep in mind that the city owns the sidewalks in the downtown. We may not need a permit, but we may need to coordinate with our traffic people to make sure that the signs that you put on the sidewalk, which really aren't in Caltrans right away, we still want to coordinate. Obviously you can't just pop a stop sign in on the sidewalk somewhere. So we want to see that anyway. And I think we talked about down by the bridge, that would be in our right of way, so we'd need a permit for that. That's all I've got for this month, unless there's questions.
Council? Any public comment? Did you have
Well, no, I'd asked about the signs, but I think, I'll check later. I'll check and see, and I'll talk to Dave about this, and then get back to you on anything where we might need to coordinate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, we'll need, to apply for a permit, you need the however many pages of engineered plans, and, there's a long checklist of what needs to be done. But we can have something where we simply have what's the sign say, how tall is the pole, where's it going, and we can run that and get the conceptual before you start spending money on putting together drawings. Okay.
Thank you.
any further questions from the council for Caltrans? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tolman, I'll allow you to do that under council reports. It's up to you. Council reports, Mr. Mudis.
We will be doing our lighted parade again, Christmas in White Pines. It will be the day after Thanksgiving. It'll start about 6 o'clock or 6:30. Yes, your microphone. Oh. Sorry.
I did that too.
I didn't know it was turned off. We're encouraging people to build floats. There is no entry fee this year. Everything that we're going to be providing, the hats, the lightsabers, everything's going to be free. So
What time?
it'll start about 6:30.
And there will be a Veterans Day Parade in Calaveras on the 11th, along with a ceremony for those that would be interested in coming down and attending. It'll start at 11 o'clock. And secondly, just a note of caution, because it was reported out by CHP to the Taste of Calaveras breakfast this morning, that our fatalities in Calaveras County are set to double over last year, and that the primary driver is not people who live in Calaveras County. So be aware of the number of people that are out there who do not live here on a regular basis, will do something quite stupid in front of you at the most inopportune time, and give them a wide berth, and don't get yourself tangled up into something that you want to go home to. So just keep it in mind.
Nothing to report.
Nothing here.
Well, not to be outdone. Valley Springs will be having their Christmas parade the first Saturday in December, which I believe is the 2nd of December. And it'll start in downtown Valley Springs or Valley Springs proper at 10 a.m. So look to see you out there.
Nothing to report.
All right. I wanted to compliment both Angels Camp and Caltrans. The Wild West Fest, where they shut down Highway 49, I thought was very successful. And my granddaughter, my wife, and I really enjoyed going over that day. So that was a good thing. Today is also kind of a significant day. The new taxes from SB 1 have been implemented. I was intrigued to see even in town here, especially on diesel, prices going from $3.34 to $3.75. So if you just choose which station you go to, you can save more than twice what you would be paying in the additional diesel tax. Similarly, the price of regulators I was looking at, it went from $2.91 to $2.99 depending on which station you chose, which again is pretty close to what the 12-cent per gallon increase ended up being. I appreciate what Caltrans has done in accelerating projects to this year in anticipation of the revenue received from SB 1, and I think we've seen it directly here in Calaveras County and certainly in the Tri-County area. So I'm hopeful that although there's some noise out there politically regarding trying to reverse SB 1 itself, I was also noticing that the numbers they were bandying about in opposition to SB 1's implementation seem to be rather extreme and extravagant. I did a quick calculation of 12 cents a gallon. If you bought 100 gallons of gas a month, we're talking about $12 a month in cost, or about $4 a week, $3 a week. I think the numbers that were being thrown out were around $400 to $600 a year. If you're paying $600 more a year, you'd be buying 400 gallons a month in gas. I don't know many people who do 400 gallons of gas a month, at least certainly not personally, and I think that's what the message was targeting, was personal use and excess taxes to people for personal use. So anyway, just keep your eyes open. Personally, I'm very supportive of and glad to see the direct results of what SB 1 is doing for us here locally and for the state of California. So that's my transportation comment on SB 1. Aside from that, nothing further to report. Staff reports.
Sure, I'll give the council an update on a few items. Submitted 3 planning grants by the October 20th deadline for Valley Springs, the San Andreas Pope Street pathway, as well as Angels Camp, North Main Street, and Capello Drive. Also submitted a Tiger grant for the Wagon Trail project, which you saw the letter of support under correspondence this afternoon. And this week we're submitting an infra grant for Wagon Trail project, which is pretty similar to the Tiger grant. It's a federal grant as well. And then this last week I attended the Self-Help Counties Coalition Focus on the Future conference, and that was a very informative conference. They covered a lot of different subject areas, and I met a lot of other regions and got to network with CTC staff and CTC commissioners, so it was a very good conference. And Murphy's SR4 Complete Streets, we just sent out an RFP for consultant services for that corridor plan. That will get started here pretty quickly, working with the county on that project. And that's it.
Did you want to introduce our new receptionist?
Sure, we have a new employee, Erin Kelly. She's our new administrative assistant. She just started on Monday.
Welcome, Erin. Any further further, staff?
I have to just, I have to correct the record because I gave an incorrect answer to Mr. Oliveira. I had assumed